Yeah. Yeah. Good afternoon. Welcome everybody to the Finance and Assets Committee meeting on Thursday, 28th of September. This is being live streamed, so I feel like I've got an echo coming back there, but this is being live streamed. So, but obviously if the stream does go down, then we will adjourn the meeting and try to correct it. So welcome to those of you watching online, members of the press and public. We start with item 1, public question time. There are none. Item 2, apologies and substitutions. Sorry, Tracy.
Thank you, Chairman. We have apologies from Councillor Dupre, Councillor Pitt and Councillor Caroline Shepherd, and Councillor Colbert is here as a substitute, and Councillor Inskip will be here as a substitute within the next 10 minutes, I understand. And apologies from Councillor Alison Whelan, she will be a little bit late for this meeting.
Thank you, Tracy. Yes, Councillor Whelan has been in the same meeting that I've been in at County Council. I've had to leave early because she's obviously going to stay till the end of that meeting. So item 3 is declarations of interest. Are there any declarations from members? Thank you. Item 4, minutes of the meeting held on the 3rd of July. Those who are here, is that happy that that was the correct record? Yeah. Good, thank you. Item 5, Chairman's announcements. The only announcements I've got is that in respect of the East Cambs Trading Company items, I've got John Hill, the Chief Executive, Paul Remington, the Chairman of ECTC, and Nigel who's the accountant here to answer questions and present. And then moving straight on, item 6 is East Cambs Trading Company 2022-2023 accounts. So I can hand over to the team from ECTC. Thank you.
Good evening all. So yes, as Chair said, East Cambs Trading Company financial statements for the year end 31 March 2023. And if it's okay with you, Chair, I'll just run briefly through the statutory accounts. On pages 1 and 2, the director's report, which states the director's responsibilities with respect to these statements, and that's namely that they must only approve these accounts if they're satisfied that they do give a true and fair view of the affairs of the company, and in doing so have selected appropriate accounting policies, applied them consistently, and that any judgments or estimates are reasonable and prudent, and that the accounts are prepared on a going concern basis only if it's correct to do so.
Chairman, just for information, we're taking the page numbers from what is on page 3, so we don't get confused. Thank you. Sorry.
No.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, John. So yeah, approved on a going concern basis only if it's correct to do so, which they are. And finally, that all relevant audit information has been provided to the auditors. On pages 3,
Just to stop you there, Nigel, just to make
cool.
sure that everybody's understand. It's the contents page within the East Cambs Trading Company accounts. There's a contents page which is Appendix 1, page 3, and I think you're referring to the page numbers that it's talking about on that. Is everybody happy with that? Yes, understand that. Councillor Pratt.
Just interestingly, one has a little number on the penultimate line, and that is actually the page numbers that you were referring to.
Okay,
Just for
thank you.
clarification.
I just wanted to make sure. Yeah, okay. I just want to make sure everybody was following what you're going to talk about. Thank you.
Thank you. So on pages 3 through 5 is the auditor's report. And on page 3, Price Bailey, our auditors confirm that they've conducted an audit on the statements and the notes, and in their opinion, they do give a true and fair view of the company's affairs, and that they've been properly prepared in accordance with the latest regulations. Turning to page 6, which is the profit and loss account. The final net profit figure for the company this year is 166k. That's actually 52k higher than I reported at the committee meeting in June. And the main adjustments were that I was carrying a little bit too much work in progress for our Hadlam site. And on one of those houses, the actual sale value of that house was higher than I had in the forecast at the year end by 25,000. There is a tax charge on those profits of 57k for the year, and actually 18k of that relates to the prior year. But when we published the accounts for 2022, we hadn't calculated that charge, so that's gone into this year. And then there's 39k of tax on the 22-23 profits. Looking at the balance sheet on page 7, there's not a huge amount of change from the ones that I presented in the management accounts. A little bit of movement under the different headings, so that non-current assets show the final payment for Kennet, which is due in October 24, which is the 800,000 there. The penultimate payment is due next month, and that sits under the current assets figure. So that leaves total assets less current liabilities at 6.3 million, which is £336,000 higher than the £6 million loan that we currently have outstanding with council. So that left the net assets of the company at the end of March 23 at 226,000, following 2 years of successive profits. And then the notes on pages 11 through 27 offer additional explanation and detail to the accounts. You'll be pleased to know I won't go through them all, but notes, the main ones are for me, note 1.2 on page 11 has some commentary on the work involved in confirming how that we prepared the accounts on the going concern, what was appropriate, and specific reference there to the current cost of living issues, impact of interest rates, and the work that we're doing on our Eden Square project, which is the live project that we have going. The tax charge that I just mentioned is on note 6, page 19. And then finally, note 13 on page 22 analyses the borrowings of the company. There's 153,000, which is due to the combined authority as a final interest payment on the Hadlam loan, and wasn't due until after all the properties have been sold. And then the £6 million due to ECDC is within the 2 to 5 year period, as the formal repayment date for that is March 26, although it's likely that we will make some repayments before that date. That's all I was going to say, Chair, but happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Nigel. Members, this item is for noting, but are there any questions? Councillor Goldsack.
Thanks, Nigel, and I'm sure this is the stupid question you're told you're never going to ask, but could you help me understand item 14, the lease liabilities?
Sorry. We have two, under accounting regulations, we have 2 leases. One is the Fordham office, where Palace Green Homes are, and the other is the Market Square lease. And the way that they are accounted for is that the value of the lease so the Market Square is a 10-year lease. You take the value of the lease payments over those 10 years, and that's treated as an asset. And then that's depreciated over the 10 years. And then the lease payments are split between paying for the actual asset and paying what's an implied interest in that. So as I say, we have 2, Fordham office, Market Square.
Thank you, Nigel. Any other questions, members? Councillor Hunt.
Well, it's not a question, Chair. Thank you very much. It's really congratulations. I think in these turbulent times, it's a bit like you expect a ship that's going out on rough waters, and there are some rough waters out there, and to come back in with the sort of figures you've produced and the stability which you've managed to keep hold of, I think is very much to your credit, and thank you.
Thank you for that. Any other comments? No. In that case, thank you, Nigel, John and Paul for coming and the presentation and it's noted. Okay, item 7 is the growth and excuse me. Item 7 is the growth and infrastructure fund. And we've got in 2.0, we've got 4 recommendations. As it's setting up the fund, I'm happy to propose this from the chair. Yeah, okay. Sorry, I've jumped. Sally, can you present first, please? Sorry, I've jumped the gun.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, everyone. As the Streatham Community Hub project is no longer being delivered in the form presented to the Growth and Infrastructure Fund last year, funding allocation has now been released back into the pot. This report is requesting permission to open the grant scheme for applications from the 9th of October using the same eligibility criteria used previously. As before, applications will be assessed by a member scoring panel. And apologies, there is an error in the recommendations. This should say 7 members on the panel, not 5, as per the terms of reference at Appendix 2. And once their applications have been assessed, the panel's recommendations will be brought back to this committee for decision.
Thank you, Sally. Now I can, yes, I'm happy to propose this from the chair. Do I have a second?
I'm happy to second, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Bovingdon. As Sally mentioned, in 2.1, little 4, the printed paper says 0.5 members. That should read 7 per the terms of reference, and it really is just a setting up again of the Growth and Infrastructure Fund, because we've received some of the money back. Are there any questions or comments on that? Councillor Hunt and then Councillor Bovingdon.
Yes, Chair, thank you. I would say that it's really very sad that we're looking at this situation here, and I was particularly disappointed. Streatham is my ward, and I really am very keen that we, as a district, look after, first of all, the welfare and the health of our citizens. And because these things that aren't just in one parish, they're inevitably knock on into other parishes nearby. I think it's a particularly sad situation that after all this, that the Streatham Parish Council has written to us, and it still remains a priority to have health cover of the highest standards in this district for all our residents. And it's number one in, I think it's number one in our goals and targets. And so I'm going to continue to try and assist and help and get this. It's got to be got back. It can't stay as it is. Anyway, thank you, Chair.
Chairman, can I just come in?
Yeah.
Just to make you aware, we've had nominations from the Liberal Democrat group for the 3 places of Councillor Dupre, Trapp and Christine Whelan. I got that right. Excellent.
Okay, thank you, Tracy. I think the Conservative group will come back with some nominations, but I've got Councillor Bovingdon next and then Councillor Goldsack.
Thank you, Chair. Just a question to Sally, really. It's a shame, obviously, regarding the situation with Streatham, but that does allow this funding to go elsewhere, if we agree. Would we go back to previous applications that were in the last tranche, or would this be a completely new application they'd have to make?
So this is a completely new application that would be made.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Goldsack.
Yeah, it was just a positive comment, and recognising and sharing the concerns of Councillor Hunt, but about Streatham and his ward. Although it's not my ward, it's where I live and it's my county ward. How pleasant it is to see that a community association that I've been long associated with, but not in the most recent past, has actually completed their project and then given back money. I thought that was a really positive thing to see, and I can assure this committee that the beaches in Isleham is absolutely flying and doing a great job. So thank you for the support.
Thank you, Councillor Goldsack. Any other? Councillor Trapp.
I thought, this is to Councillor Bovingdon, I thought there weren't any fundings that were, sorry, we gave money to all the applications, didn't we? I think.
There were two that weren't eligible.
Yes,
because we're
exactly.
governed
But
by
all
the
the
Cambridgeshire
eligible ones,
Horizons
and if I remember-
guidelines.
If I remember rightly, also, we went over just to include all those. Thank you very much.
Thank you, councillor Trapp. Any other questions or comments, members? Okay, so we're being requested to agree that, small one, agree that the fund will be reopened on Monday, the 9th of October and closed at 5 PM on Friday, the 8th of December. To approve the scheme eligibility criteria, Appendix 1, to approve the Growth and Infrastructure Fund scoring panel terms of reference as set out in Appendix 2, and appoint 7 members to the Growth and Infrastructure Fund scoring panel as set out in paragraph 4.6 of this report. Can I take that everybody's in favour of that? I'm not hearing any dissent towards it. Great, thank you. Item 8 is the Community Infrastructure Levy funding allocation, changing places facility in Soham. And can I ask Sally to present it, please?
Thank you, Chair. The council was successful in securing changing places toilets funding from government earlier this year for facilities in Ely, Littleport and Soham. For those of you that are not aware, changing places toilets are larger accessible toilets for severely disabled people with equipment such as hoists, curtains, adult size changing bed, benches and space for carers. This report is requesting seal funding for the council's match funding element of the modular facility to be installed at Fountain Lane on Soham. And just let you know, we are assisting Littleport Town Council and the Lighthouse Centre in Ely with their changing places facilities.
Thank you, Sally. I did see that when we did the tour of the assets we own a couple of weeks ago that Councillor Hunt organised, I did see the spot where this is going to sit. So it's certainly a good facility. So can I ask for a proposer for this?
Chair, I'm very happy to propose and very grateful to see this come along.
Thank you, Councillor Goldsack. And the seconder?
Yes, I'm happy to second this
Okay.
proposal.
Thank you, Councillor Lay. Are there any questions or comments? No, I'm seeing Councillor Trapp.
I'm not sure what the match fund 3.3. What are we matching here? The funding of, are we matching what's produced by?
So we're matching the government funding that we receive from the Department from Levelling Up Housings and Communities.
Right, and the other match funding was done by Littleport and Ely or Lighthouse.
So they'll provide their own match funding for their projects to match the government funding, and we're using SEAL because it's a community council facility at Soham.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Trapp. Any other comments, members, or?
If I may, Chair.
Yes, Councillor Goldsack.
I think it's just worth taking a minute to just remind ourselves what we've done here. These changing facilities are few and far between, but greatly needed. And quite frankly, to see them coming into the district in our market towns, so to speak, I think is a huge benefit. And it's something that said that would be delivered and is being delivered. So I'm very proud of the fact that Soham's at the heart of that, but I'm very proud to see them coming into the district. So thank you.
I echo that comment. Thank you, Councillor Goldsack. I'm seeing, is everybody in favour of this? I'm seeing no dissent of it. Right. Thank you. Good afternoon, Councillor Inskip. Sorry, we're just about to start item 9. And item 9 is the outside bodies update. Can I ask Tracy to
Thank you,
present
Chairman.
this?
Yes, as you know, we've still got a few outstanding appointments for internal drainage boards as far as the outside bodies are concerned. And you'll see there's a table at 4.8, which is probably the easiest thing to refer to as far as this is concerned. We have had a number of nominations for the vacant internal drainage board posts. Most of those are uncontested, but we have two where we have more nominations than spaces available, and that's the Hadnam level one and the Little Porton Downham one. So if members are agreeable, we should be able to agree the others that are uncontested in that table, and I'll come on to the process for the two contested ones in a minute. In addition, we've had an approach from the Rural Services Network for representation in August, after obviously this paper, the original paper on outside bodies had been produced. So we've been asked if we can get some nominations for that. And we've had two nominations from the Conservative group for Keith Horgan as the nominated member and James Lay as the nominated backup member. So effectively they call it a backup member, but they mean a substitute. So that's where we are. So if you're all agreeable to the uncontested IDBs and to the two nominations for the Rural Services Network, we can take those. And then I'll go to the process for the two contested ones. But I'll leave the first bit for you, first of all.
Okay, thank you, Tracy. So are members happy with that we agree 2.1 and 2.3 as read on the recommendation? And we can then go through the procedure. Yeah, members are happy with that. And we then go through and
That's right.
you'll lead us through on
Yeah,
how
that's
we
fine.
deal
So
with
as I said, we've got
two.
contested nominations for Haddenham and Little Porton Downham, and you'll see there are statements for the people who have been put forward in 4.6 and 4.7. For the Haddenham, it's a straight 1 from 2. For Little Porton Downham, it's 3 nominations for 2 vacancies. So if we start off with the Haddenham one, I think the easiest way is if I just call out the names, which is Councillor Steve Cheetham and Councillor Mark Duckworth. So when I call your name, can you tell me whether you'd like to vote for Councillor Cheetham or for Councillor Duckworth? Okay. Right, let's just make sure I get the right people. So Councillor Ian Bovingdon. Oh, yeah, sorry.
Are we going to debate this or?
Yeah, you can do it.
Well,
Yes, do you want to? No, that's fine. No, I
references.
don't go straight. We don't, no.
Well, I'm the county councillor for Hadnam. I have close knowledge of both these candidates, and it's not so much that I'm in any way critical of Mark Duckworth, but Steve Cheetham is an absolutely exemplary candidate. He lives in Hadnam, and Mark Duckworth has only recently moved into Woolburton, and I can see that Steve Cheetham's experience as a district councillor and an active parish councillor is exemplary, and I would very much like to recommend that we vote for Steve Cheetham in this position. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Hunt. Are there any other comments on that? In which case, we go to the Haddenham one first then, and then we can deal with the Little Porton Downham one next.
Thank you. Okay, so Councillor Ian Bovingdon. Would you like to, Councillor Cheetham or Councillor Duckworth?
Councillor Steve Cheetham.
Okay. Councillor Colbert. Sorry. Councillor Duckworth? Yeah. Okay. Councillor Mark Goldsack. Councillor Goodall. Oh, no, sorry, I beg your pardon. Going down the wrong list here. Councillor Bill Hunt. Councillor Mark Inskip.
Councillor Duckworth.
Councillor Lay.
Steve Cheetham.
Councillor Miller.
Steve Cheetham.
Councillor Sharp
Steve Cheetham.
and Councillor Trapp. Okay. So that's Councillor Steve Cheetham by 6 votes. Get my teeth right. 6 votes to 3.
Okay, thank you, Tracy. We move on to Littleport and Downham. After there was comment about the Haddenham level. Is there any member want to make a comment about individual? Councillor Colbert?
Well, I would just say that although I don't know any of these gentlemen, it does occur to me that farmers seem like a good idea. So personally, I'm in favour of farmers being represented on the Internal Drainage Board. That's all I wanted to say. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Colbert. No other comments, in which case we go to the same procedure we've just done. But just a reminder, you're voting, you can vote for one, but you can actually vote for a maximum of two.
That's right, Chairman. So the three nominations that we have is Councillor Andrew Butcher, Councillor Howard Palmer and Councillor Mark Taylor. And you can vote for up to two in this case. Councillor Ian Bovingdon.
Andrew Butcher and Mark Taylor, please.
Councillor Colbert. Councillor Goldsack.
Councillor Butcher and Councillor Taylor, please.
Councillor Hunt. Councillor Inskip.
Councillor Butcher and Councillor Palmer.
Councillor Lay.
Butcher and Taylor.
Councillor Miller.
Councillors Butcher and Palmer.
Councillor Sharp.
Andrew Butcher and Mark Taylor.
And Councillor Trapp. Yep. So apologies for this. I have wonky eyesight, so it takes me a bit more time to work them out. So, so we have 6 votes for Councillor Butcher, 5 votes for Councillor Palmer, and 7 votes for Councillor Taylor. So Councillor Butcher and Councillor Taylor are the nominations. And
Okay.
I've just been reminded that we didn't actually technically propose and second the first 2 recommendations. So can I just sort of go through the formality of doing that?
Yeah, I was just
Yeah.
being reminded of that.
Yeah.
I'm happy to propose this from the chair.
Mm.
I'll second, Chair.
So can I ask for a show of hands that everybody's in favour of the recommendations? Thank you.
Thank you.
Chairman, or are we?
That is, yeah.
Okay, right.
Sorry, did you have?
I was just going to say that the two fellows that didn't get asked to stand, I'm sure we could write to their parish councils and thank them for offering to stand, and at the same point, things change.
Yeah, it's two very valid comments there, so we can, yeah, we don't want to turn willing volunteers away. So, yeah, that's very good points there. So if you can ask them, Tracy, if they're willing to stand in another drainage board, that would be useful. Thank you. Item 10 is the establishment of the independent remuneration panel. And I think Tracy's introducing this.
Thank you, Chairman. It's a very unusual position for me. I don't normally have to speak very often. I normally just scribble. Yes, we have the opportunity to establish the independent remuneration panel to run concurrently with the review of the Constitution, which is about to take place. The first meeting of the Constitution Working Party is due to take place on the 3rd of October. And we do actually have to have an independent remuneration panel either this year or next year, because we're only allowed to rely on an indexation factor under the regulations for a 4-year period. So it seemed opportune, if members are agreeable, to run the two things concurrently so that the review of the Constitution can actually inform the deliberations on members' allowances as well. So that's why we're proposing that we conduct the review in the current year rather than waiting to the last period, which would be autumn next year.
Thank you, Tracy. I remember from full council back in July that this was discussed at the time, and it needed to come to this committee to be formally, we are the committee that actually formally recommends the setting up of the independent remuneration panel. I'm happy as it's a procedural thing to propose this from the chair.
I'm happy to second, Chair.
Are there any comments or questions on this from members? Councillor Inskip.
Yeah, just a very brief comment, just to say for the reasons outlined, it certainly makes sense to do that this year rather than wait to next year. So I'm happy to support the proposal.
Thank you. So-
And sorry, I just something that occurred to me before I came to this meeting, for those of you who may be new to the council and obviously might not know how the independent remuneration panel actually works, and I took it for granted that most members would, but some new members may not. The panel is 4 lay people who have obviously are recruited, and we have a standing panel. And as part of the process, they will send a questionnaire to members to find out information from you, and then they will request to interview a cross-section of councillors arising from the responses they get. So yourselves as councillors will be able to feed into the process and inform the independent remuneration panel's deliberations so that it gives them an informed way of making their recommendations.
Thank you, Tracy. Any other comments on this? Everybody in favour of setting up this IRP panel? Yeah, thank you. Item 11 is the gender pay reporting for 22-23, and if I can ask Nicole Pima, who's the HR manager, to
Thank you, Chair. Okay. So this report provides the committee with measurable data on gender pay at the council. As at the 31st of March 2023, the women's mean hourly rate was £17.22 per hour, which was 10.1% lower than the male's mean hourly rate of £19.16 per hour. And the women's median hourly rate was £15.26 per hour, which is 10.6% lower than the male median hourly rate of £17.06 per hour. Table 1 sets out the percentage of men and women in each of the pay quartiles. Females account for 56% in the upper, 73% in the upper middle, 69% in the lower middle, and 79% in the lower quartiles. At this time, the workforce comprised of 133 females and 59 males. Section 4.5 sets out how the council's pay gap has changed over the last 3 years, and tables 2, 3, and 4 provide comparison against other local authorities. The council will continue to build on actions aimed at reducing the gender pay gap. For example, using structured interviews and skills-based assessment in recruitment and promotion to prevent unfair bias. Encouraging women to negotiate salaries by showing salary ranges when recruiting, offering flexible working and remote working, offering financial assistance towards childcare costs, offering a structured approach to performance management, which encourages them to speak to their managers about career development and progression, and ensuring that part-time employees are well supported and given opportunities to progress. Members are asked to note the report, and I'm happy to take any questions.
thank you, Nicole. We've had one question from Councillor Trapp. And are you going to, says response will be provided verbally, are we going to
Yeah.
talk to that?
If I could come in before Nicole does, Councillor Trapp, it was quite difficult to try and give a written response to the question that you've asked. So perhaps given the information that we provided you last night, you might want to restate or change your question or seek any clarity that way. That might help.
Basically, there's an error, and you've got, shall we say, look at the bottom right column for Cambridgeshire County Council. Upper quarter is 72%, 72.7% proportion of women in 2021. There's 29% in 21-22 and 73.6% in 22-23. So I maintain that the error, table 3, the last line should of the proportion should be the complement of 100. You can't go from something like 70% down to 29% and back up to 70% over 1 year.
Sorry, I think actually from looking at the figures, I think the county have submitted the wrong data
Yes.
online. So I think it's not supposed to add up to 100%, those columns. It is
No.
they are supposed to be the high percentages, but if you look at all of their other years, and I went back and logged on to the comparison portal yesterday, and it's still showing that data. So it seems that they've input the wrong data, I would suggest, for that year.
Yes, I mean, obviously it's 83%. If you look at the bottom line, of
Yeah.
table 4, it's 83%, 82%, 75%. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they've done
I think
proportion of
they've-
males for
Yes, I
that.
think they've just done it.
If I can come in, I mean, looking at I can understand where councillor Trapp is coming from. 21-22 looks totally out of sync with 22-23 and the year before. So perhaps if we could get if councillor Trapp's happy with this, if we could speak to the county, because they've obviously made the error, and circulate what the actual correct figures were to the committee, and
Yes,
that would,
I shall do that.
I'm sure that would satisfy councillor Trapp.
I mean, it's obvious what the answer should be.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
I don't need confirmation.
Okay.
Thank you. I've got councillor Lay.
Yes, it was just a comment. I don't suppose most of you know that councillor Trapp is a mathematician, so we shouldn't be surprised that he picks us up on some of the figures. Thank you.
A mathematician is not normally concerned with numbers. It's more higher things than that.
Thank you, councillor Miller.
Thank you very much indeed for your presentation. Evidently I'm new at this job, so I am still getting to grips with reports of this sort. I did have a question about table 1. If I read this correctly, the majority, more than the majority of workers in each quartile are women. I think pretty sure that's what table 1
Yeah,
says.
that's correct.
And yet they seem to be paid less. Now, I'm wondering what the explanation for that is, because either it is not a reasonable assumption that people in the same quartile are doing roughly comparable jobs, or women really are being paid less for comparable jobs. Can you comment or elaborate on that at all? Thank you.
I think the problem is, I've put some conclusions that I've drawn from in section 4.6, but it's the fact that there's a lot of women performing the lower level jobs, and then that brings the figures the figures down.
Yeah, I saw that, but I'm still puzzled, because if they're in the same quartile, how are they doing lower paid jobs if they're in the same quartile?
Because because if you look at the lower quartile, you've got 79% of them are females. You've only got 21% males there.
Oh, I see. So that's just dragging the mean down for the
Yeah.
whole
Yeah.
100%. Okay, I understand.
Thank you. I've got councillor Bovingdon, then councillor Trapp, councillor Inskip, and councillor Goldsack. Thank you, councillor Bovingdon.
Thanks, Nicole. Without those people out, whether they're not mathematicians, to the outside layperson, all of the means, medians, everything else, it's like, everybody says, oh, well, women are paid less. I mean, look, putting it into to clarity, for the same job, are men and women paid the same amount?
Yes,
That's all I wanted to know. Thank you.
definitely.
Thank you, councillor Bovingdon. Councillor Trapp.
Yeah, I'm just wondering whether a better breakdown on these figures would be if the gender pay gap or non would be appropriate for each of the quartiles. So for the upper quartile, and that will actually give much more representation of where it's happening. I think it's unfortunate we've actually changed the it's gone back again a bit, regress the gender pay gap. And it could be just it could be just statistical, noise, which does happen. And I'm glad that there's some kind of attempt to try and, but there may be more to discover if each quartile was also given a gender pay gap. Well, some of us can work with figures, Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, we'll take that away. Councillor Inskip.
So I'm an engineer, not a mathematician, but but my maths is pretty good, but I'm not asking about the numbers. I'm actually want to talk about paragraph 4.7. So it obviously lists the things that you're doing and continuing to do. One thing that struck me as missing is, I know it's quite common in organizations these days to look carefully at when they're writing job advertisements and specifications to review those, and there are plenty of tools, Textio, for example, that looks at that. I wonder is why we don't have that amongst the measures we're taking to make sure that when we promote vacancies that they're not biased towards one gender or the other, because clearly, as Councillor Trapp has said, we are sort of, the latest figures are heading the wrong way, and I'm wondering why we don't have that as one of the measures.
Perhaps it is something I'd say that we're doing. I'm not sure what, perhaps I just thought it was included as part of the recruitment and promotion one, but we could expand that to put it.
Okay, thanks. And I guess a more general follow-up. What are we doing to ensure, so you've talked here about continuing to do these measures that you're doing. What do you do to sort of ensure that we're, let's say, continuing to follow best practice, because this tends to be quite an evolving area in terms of ideas and methods to use?
I'm not 100% sure really. I think we've got good policies in place for people to utilise that kind of include all of these actions. We've got the equalities policy, we've got the recruitment and selection policy, which has quite clear guidance around these areas. But I'm not sure what else.
Okay, thank you, Nicole. I've got Councillor Goldsack now.
Thank you, Chairman. A couple of things, just in response to Councillor Trapp, as a suggestion, this was suggested to me the other night because I raised a similar question. The head of our planning service was a terrific lady who's left, and so she was a relatively high pay earner, and she's left and been replaced by a gentleman. And I think that's actually quite a significant difference in it would have skewed the male to female figures. So that was just that one. And also in the interest of following in Councillor Trapp's starting point here, in table 4, 2022-23, is it that Cambridge County Council have now dipped below 5,000 employees, or is that another typo?
I'm going to check that, because normally I just copy and paste them straight from the portal, so I would have thought they must have changed it for me to have inserted it, but I will double check.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, before I bring councillor Trapping, can I, Emma just wants to make a comment.
Yeah, I just wanted to reassure members that we do have recruitment practices and policies in place that target everyone and enable everyone to be able to apply for jobs and in a non-discriminatory way. What I see is this is a product of having a small organisation with a flat structure, that the slightest nuance and change, as Councillor Goldsack's identified. Previously we had a female planning manager, we now have a male planning manager. That one slight change does have quite an impact on the figures because of the size of the organisation. So I'm always happy that we've got the right policies in place to promote everyone in the workforce. We have a management team that does have 3 women on it, 4 women on it. So we're an organisation that does support women in the workforce as well. So I just wanted to put that on record, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Emma. I've got councillor Trapp wanting to come back in.
Sorry to come back again. In fact, had one actually
Sorry,
split.
councillor Goldsack, can you turn your mic on? Great, thank you.
The replacement of one female planning manager by a male would not have shown up, shouldn't have shown up in the upper quartiles at all, because they would have been paid the same and the gender pay gap might have been the same. That's why I think having a structure, sort of something by quartile might be useful. At the Open University where I was working, I was interviewing about at least 40 people a year. And when we changed our practices, instead of going interview, but having much more structured interview, not interviews, but actually assessment, we made a big change in how we recruited people. And actually, I think we very much improved it in the maths people, particularly maths people. Yes, okay, no, I won't say that any further. Maths people can be very shy and look at their own feet or shoes, and having different qualities or assessments made a big difference to how we recruited people. Thank you.
Councillor Bobbington.
I think my understanding is if that position is paid by a man and paid by women, because there are more women than men in the business, then that amount is spread across more women than the number of men, which would affect the median percentages. Is that my understanding of it? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, members. I'm seeing no more indicators. That's been very, we will take away the comments and see what we can come back with. But thank you, Nicole. Item 12 is the East Cambridgeshire Local Council Tax Reduction Scheme for 24-25. So I can ask Ian to present it. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Each year, the council is required to review its local council tax reduction scheme. As detailed in the paper, no changes are proposed for 2024-25, with the reasons for this being detailed in section 4.4 of the report. Committee is asked to recommend to council that the report be approved. Thank you, Chair.
So if I can propose this from the chair and Councillor Hunt will second. So moving on, we do have 2 questions from Councillor Trapp. Are you happy with the replies, and do you have any follow-ups to your questions, Councillor Trapp?
Yes, I do. I mean, great. It's unfortunate we haven't got these figures, and I'm sorry I only sent it in on Tuesday evening, because the figures about how many ECD residents benefit from the local council tax reduction scheme may influence which option we vote for. So, you know, in a sense that information is really relevant, I think, for actually making a judgment on this, a considered judgment. So, yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Trapp. Are there any other, Councillor Miller?
I just wanted to make a comment in support of the proposal. I don't think it does anyone any favours, particularly the least well off, to hold the council tax that they pay at an artificially low level by supplementing or subsidising their council tax from public sources, because eventually those resources will run out, and eventually their council tax will have to go up, possibly by quite a lot. So large jumps are probably a bad idea. So just my comment.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Colbert.
Yeah, mine is a question. In order that I can understand this better, I would like to know how many households we've got in the district that are paying tax and what sort of proportion fall into this problem area.
Can we answer that, Ian?
Okay.
I mean, we
Yes, I mean, I'm assuming it's 30-odd thousand households, but that's mainly guesswork from what I've seen on population figures.
yeah, I mean, the amounts, I mean, I look at the MTFS reports, which is obviously later on the agenda. That is saying that we've got, sorry, looking through. That is saying in this financial year, we've got 31,964 equivalent Band-E properties. Now, clearly, Band-E equivalents of Band-Es doesn't mean that's the exact number of properties, but that's obviously a rough figure for the number of properties in the district. I mean, we have requested the information after Councillor Trapp's request from our ARP partners, but we are still waiting for that. But clearly, we can share that information with committee once received.
Right.
Members, any other comments or Councillor Hunt?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Am I right in thinking that the majority of people who are in receipt of this discount living in property bands A or B?
Can you turn, well, Councillor Colbert's got a mic on as well. I think that might be.
Again, I haven't got these figures in front of me, but I think that's a fairly safe assumption, yeah.
Okay, are we debating now, Chair?
I'm happy to debate now.
Okay, well, I'd like to stick with option one. I think it's I think the discount is really quite substantial. And if it comes off an A or B property, it really does cut down the amount to pay. And I generally believe in life that if you have zero cost, then it has zero value. And people don't appreciate it has a value. And I think it's important for getting people back onto the into work and that sort of thing. We ought to encourage it, and I think that putting a value on things is part of that building process. And so I would be going for option one.
Councillor Trapp.
Yeah, I'm working from just Band-E properties. It sort of skews the figure slightly. Would it be possible, Ian, if you could circulate for us how many households there are in East Cambridgeshire, and then how many fall into bands A, B, C, D, E? Just for our information going forward, just makes it a little bit easier for me to sort of understand. Do you understand?
Thank you. Councillor Trapp.
Thank you. The reason I posed my question was whether actually missing out £24,000, which would be the cost of the district council for having zero rate, would actually be cheaper than not following up people who didn't pay the rates. And then one of the questions are how many of those are in arrears, and I think that will make it slightly more informed had we got figures like that. Yes, by all means, let's have some breakdown of properties within the district. But also, I think these people are having, the residents are having a lot of problems paying. And I think we ought to be looking at dropping the option. I would go for option 2 myself, and I propose that. I don't know what the procedure is, but whether one should propose it or. And so get it seconded.
So at the moment, Chairman, you've got the recommendation to accept what's in the report. It's been moved and seconded. I'm just trying to work out whether option 2 would be a negation, but I don't think it is it? No, it isn't. So it could be treated as an amendment to go for option 2 instead of option 1.
So you're now proposing that as an amendment, councillor Trapp?
Yes, I am.
Okay, and councillor Inskip is seconded it, okay. I think we're now going to the amendment to debate that, so if your comments are on the amendment then, but it's councillor Trapp can speak to the amendment first and then I'll bring members in. Are you reserving your right to speak, councillor Inskip, on the amendment? Yeah, okay. So I'll bring councillor Lay and councillor Goldsack in after councillor Trapp.
I think without knowing more detail about how many people, how many residents are in arrears, how many residents benefit from the local council tax reduction scheme, it's very difficult to make any conclusions how this would affect most people. So I think we are working from not facts, but actually emotions here. And I'm sorry that we may be affecting people who are actually in quite dire straits.
Okay, thank you, councillor Trapp. I move now to councillor Goldsack.
Thank you. I welcome the amendment, and I agree with most of the things. I think it's actually would be good for this committee to see the figures that councillor Trapp has. I totally agree with that. I think the more information you've got to make a decision, the better. However, where I do slightly disagree is a point of principle, and I don't think it's a point of emotion. I think it's a point of principle, and I think it's a point of principle that people should pay something. And I think if it's valued at 0 and they know it's 0, there'll be no attempt to move forward in some areas. Those that need help, we should be looking to help with, and I'm sure we are. But so there's 2 parts to my comments, really. One are the more figures we can have, the better, because I think it helps us to make decisions. But in my point of principle, I will be voting against the amendment.
Thank you, councillor Goldsack. I've got councillor Lay.
Yes, I'd have to vote against the amendment because if 8.5% represents 24,000, then the other 90% or the other 100% is more than 250,000 is not being paid. And I think a rebate of 8.5% to me looks reasonable because everybody ought to contribute something to the whole. Thank you.
We've got councillor Miller next.
I just wanted to, I didn't realise this would come up, so I just wanted to enter in for the record my earlier comments about not doing any favours for people with vis-a-vis future tax rises. So I will be voting against the amendment.
Thank you, councillor Miller. I've got councillor Colbert.
Thank you. Well, I find it very difficult to vote when we don't have all of the information because we don't know what it's costing to have Anglia Revenue Partnership collecting this money. So that's point number 1. Point number 2 is I just wonder how we arrived at 8.5%. 5% or 7.5 would have made more sense to me if I was going to pick a figure.
Can you help us with that, Ian?
Yeah, as detailed in 3.2, when this used to be a national scheme and it became a local scheme,
And when it moved to a local scheme, government funded
Ah.
91.5%. And that we've continued to stay with that figure since that point.
Thank you.
Okay, just to welcome councillor Whelan, we're in item 12, at the moment on an amendment. Councillor Hunt.
Yes, I don't know if anybody can help me a bit here, but I'm trying to look up in a sort of back of a cigarette packet type of way. Would I be correct in thinking that the average amount per month that was somebody who was in A or B and received was paying the 8.5% would be paying something like £10 a month? Would that be, are we in the right sort of ballpark there?
Again, clearly I haven't got the figures in front of me, but I don't think you'd be far away with that sort of assumption. Yeah.
Is that the sort of figure we're talking about? Okay, so I would, I think we should have better figures in future. And it would be more helpful, and I agree with Councillor Goldsack. I think it is a matter of principle. I think people should perceive that there is a value in something. And as it's just been confirmed, I mean, we're talking about in the region of £10 a month. And I think it's entirely right and proper and moral that is what's charged, and we go with the officer's recommendation.
We're actually referring to the amendment at the moment, councillor. Councillor Whelan.
Sorry, I've come in. I'm not entirely sure where things are in this at the moment. But one thing that occurs to me is of the 24,000, which is actually quoted as the cost of doing this, what I'm concerned about is how much of that sits within debts that potentially are irrecoverable or unlikely to be recovered. You know, Councillor Hunt may feel that £10 a month may not be very much to him, but I know an awful lot of people where £10 a month is actually the difference between eating and not. And I just wonder how many of the people we've actually got are actually in a very difficult financial situation and actually aren't even paying this money, even though it's currently required.
Do we have any information on that?
I mean, appreciate you only just coming in, Councillor Whelan. I mean, Councillor Trapp asked a similar question to that, which we have requested information from ARP, but we haven't yet received that. But I will share that with members when we have done, when we get it.
So I move to, I'm seeing no more hands, so I move to councillor Inskip then, who's the second in the amendment.
Thank you, Chair. I think we need to remember the context in which we're making this decision today. The report does briefly mention a cost of living crisis, but that is this is something that we haven't seen for decades, and you know, too often people complain about the sort of council sitting in council chambers being out of touch with the real world. Let's just remember that we've got, you know, the highest interest rates for 2 decades. People are struggling to make mortgage payments. That also affects people who are renting, we've seen rents rising at levels we haven't seen for decades. We've got the highest inflation since the 1980s, the highest tax burden since the Second World War. And that economic mismanagement isn't the fault of those people who are struggling to find those pennies, that £10 a month extra that we're charging them on the council tax. And we don't make a point of principle, at least the government nationally doesn't make a point of principle, for example, that says everyone must pay income tax. In fact, the government has made great play of taking low earners out of taxation, that they don't have to pay anything. Similarly, National Insurance has a threshold. We recognise that some people are struggling so much that we don't think it's appropriate to charge them, because that money could be helping just keep ends meet to get that next meal. And I really don't understand why this is the only mechanism we have as councillors. Why, when there are all these other acknowledgements that people who are very on low incomes don't have to pay taxation, why we're saying when we have the choice that we're insisting that even those on the poorest incomes, the ones who are really struggling, still have to pay. And we're not talking about a huge sum of money. We know that we don't have all of the figures as been said, but we know that that 24,000, if anything, is an overstatement given of people who are in arrears. And I don't know about others, but I certainly have constituents who are really struggling to get by. That £10 a month, £120 a week might not seem much to most of us around the table here, but I think to those people who are really struggling, this can make a crucial difference between the next meal or not. And I think we owe it to those people who are really struggling to go with this option 2, to give that 100% rebate. And that's why I'm supporting the amendment that Councillor Trapp has made.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Inskip. Obviously, we've got the amendment, this is then we're recommending this, whatever, to go to full council. So there will be a chance to debate it again at full council. I'm going to move to the vote on this. Councillor Trapp.
Would we have the full figures then as well, as requested by full council, so we can make more informed decisions?
If I could, Chairman, it was just a matter of timing with the figures that you requested, that we just couldn't get them in time for this meeting. We fully expect to have them by the end of the week, so members will have the figures that you've talked about this evening, hopefully by the end of the week, if not next week. This week, yes. Oh, that's tomorrow. So early next week. I don't want to overpromise. Thank you.
The other question I have, sorry, Chairman, is at what time by what date should we be deciding this? Is this for the 24-25?
This is for 24-25.
So as long as we have time to decide, we don't have to do it now.
If you can come in and clarify that, Ian.
Yeah, the issue is that if it doesn't say in this paper, because the recommendation of the paper is that we continue with the current scheme. If we want to change the scheme, we have to go out to consultation. And so therefore, we do need to make a decision sooner rather than later to have time for that consultation to take place. But in relation to making the final decision, that technically doesn't need to take place until council in February.
Thank you. In that case, 4.1, should that be 24-25 rather than 20-23-24? 4.1, second line, 2023-24 should be 24-25.
This is just a question. Yeah, so that's clarified the typo. I think we need to go to the vote on this, I think, because on the amendment. So
Chair, ask for a recorded vote, please.
Yes, okay, yeah. Tracy, can you?
So councillors, you're voting on the amendment, which is to go for option 2. So when I call your name, will you say whether you're voting for, against or abstaining? Councillor Ian Bovingdon.
Against.
Councillor Christine Colbert. Councillor Mark Goldsack.
Against.
Councillor Bill Hunt. Councillor Mark Inskip.
For.
Councillor James Lay.
Yes.
Councillor David Miller.
Against.
Councillor Alan Sharp.
Against.
Councillor John Trapp. Councillor Alison Whelan. So the amendment is lost by 6 votes to 4.
Thank you, Tracy.
So can I raise a point of order, please?
Yes, sure.
Yeah, and this is not a personal thing, but I just, on other committees we sat on, particularly planning, somebody that wasn't part of the whole debate is not permitted to vote. And I just want to not make sure that we've left ourselves open here for a challenge or whatever later. I know the amendment was lost. I just thought it was a point of principle. I'm assuming, Maggie, this is perfectly okay for councillor Whelan to vote.
I'm not sure, did you hear enough of the debate to make an informed decision? Yeah. Then I'm happy.
If I can clarify, I was debating that within my own mind. But at one stage I was erring to not allow councillor Whelan to vote, but then she came into the debate and there was various discussions. So on balance of fairness, I decided to allow it. But I totally understand the point. It was probably a very borderline decision, but I veered in favour of that. Yeah. Okay, so we move on then to the motion, or so we're now going on to the recommendation, which is on 2.1, leaving the scheme unchanged. Is there any further debate or any debate on that? I'm seeing none, in which case we move to the vote. Can I have those who are in favour of the recommendation 2.1? And those against? Those abstaining? No, I'm happy with that you were allowed to vote in the previous amendment, because I'd made that decision that I would allow you to vote. But I understand the point councillor Goldsack's making.
Thank you, Chairman. So that motion is carried by 6 votes to 3 with 1 abstention.
Okay, we'll move on to item 13, which is the medium-term financial strategy update, which is for noting. But if I can ask Ian to introduce it, please.
Thank you, Chair. Revised figures in this report show the budget for 2024 and 2024, 25 and 25, 26 are now in balance. The main uncertainty in the budget remains the timing of the fair funding review. This has been delayed by a further year in the paper, with the explanation for this detailed in paragraph 5.1. The MTFS will be kept under review and reported to committee as appropriate, with the draft budget report due to come to committee in January. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Ian. We've had 2 questions on this. The first one was from councillor Trapp. Are you happy with the response, and would you like to have a follow-up question? Councillor Trapp, can you put your microphone on?
I'm still not sure about how much actually it would be, what items, what is the estimate of the loss?
Sorry. If we look at in Appendix 1, sorry, apologies to everybody that we didn't have the second part of Appendix 1 in the original papers. If we look at the paper Appendix 1, which is in the papers, if you look at locally retained non-domestic rates, which is towards the bottom of the first table, between 25-26, which shows 5.8 million, to 26-27 shows 4.3 million.
It would be about $1 million.
Well, 1.5 million.
Million and a half.
Yeah. That's the rough impact.
Right, thank you. Okay, thank you, Ian. We also had a question from councillor Shepherd, who unfortunately is not here tonight. So the answer is it is. So there's no opportunity for a follow-up. Members, are there any other questions on the medium-term financial strategy? I'm seeing, oh, councillor Inskip.
Well, it's really just, I'm not sure I understand the second part of the answer to councillor Trapp's question, where you say the assumption is that a new government will want to undertake a review. What does that mean?
Well, in the budget you and MTFS you approved in February this year, the fair funding review was assumed it would be in 25-26. Clearly, funding figures from government for 25-26 are announced prior to Christmas 24, and so thought there's a view that any new government in place won't have time to do figures for the end of 24, and so therefore there won't be opportunity for the fair funding review to take place for the 25-26 year, and so therefore the earliest is now likely to happen is 26-27. Yeah.
Thank you, Ian. I think that's just clarifying what we understand of the general election cycle. Any other comments, questions? No, thank you, members. We're being asked to note the report, so it's noted. Item 14 is the finance report, and again, it's over to Ian.
Thank you, Chair. As detailed in the report, Finance and Assets Committee is projecting an underspend at year end of 265,000. The council overall is forecasting an underspend of 324,000 at year end. And there's a capital budget underspend forecast of 862,000. Also in this report is a Treasury management update. New legislation requires that we produce a Treasury management update on a quarterly basis rather than a half-yearly basis. But the quarterly update doesn't have to go to full council as the half-yearly one does. So therefore, in the end of quarters 1 and 3, I propose having the Treasury management report as an appendices to the finance reports. This is currently showing increased levels of interest received in the year to date, and we're forecasting £160,000 of additional interest receipts by the end of the financial year. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Ian. We've had no prior questions on this item. Are there any questions from members? Are there any comments from members? Councillor Hunt.
I just say, thank goodness we're not in Birmingham, and we're not looking at a 10% increase in council tax, and we're not looking at a organisation that has just sent the whole of most of the West Midlands into chaos. And thank God we've got a steady hand on the tiller here. And thank you, Ian, and let it continue. I think we can be an example to many councils, and not all of them a long way away. Thank you, Chair. Thank you,
Councillor Hunt. Yes, I sympathise with that. My hometown my hometown is Slough, so I take a keen interest in the mess that they're in at the moment. Councillor Trapp.
So I'm not quite. I've got the amended sheet that was sent out. I noticed that for the budget 2023-24, the figures there don't quite match up with the ones in Appendix 1.
So Councillor Trapp, it actually relates to the previous item.
Is it? All right.
Sheet. Yes.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? No, in which case we're asked to note the underspend for both revenue and projected year-end underspend, the overall position on capital and the Treasury management activity. So thank you, duly noted. Item 15 is the assets update, and if I can ask Spencer, who's in position already, to present it. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Firstly, I'd just like to give a quick update to members on some of the programme of works currently ongoing. Probably one of the most important one is the cloisters, because actually at the moment, the men's toilet is actually closed after a recent downpour, which caused it to flood and the ceiling to collapse and bring down the lighting. So I'd just like to reassure members it's being dealt with quickly and as possible. The reason for the flood has been found out and been rectified, and now we're just working on costs and a way forward to get the toilets open as quickly as possible. Then just moving on to a couple other projects that are ongoing at the moment, or just about completed. That's the Littleport Barn repairs that have just been completed and now clearing the site. And also Cemetery Lodge is also, the works there have just been completed and the site is just about to be cleared. The depot project is continuing moving forward and is now including with our IT colleagues to upgrade all the IT systems there and their equipment. So, and the forecast at the moment for this deadline, forecast for this project to complete is the end of November. So that ends the report there, Chairman. I'm happy to try and take any questions from the floor.
Thank you, Spencer. We have got a recommendation. Items 1 and 2 are for noting. Item 3. So the recommend. So I'm happy to propose that from the chair.
Happy to second, Chair.
And the only other thing before I open it up is I was lucky enough to, or had the time to take part in the tour of the assets that the district council owned a couple of weeks ago, and I found it really interesting, even as an old member, so to speak. So, but I understand lots of people have got work time commitments, so I think we're trying to. I think it'd be useful to as many members as possible. So I think we're trying to work's ongoing. I think to try and get a more time where others can take part. But thank you. It was very, very informative that day. So members, any questions on the report? Councillor Colbert and then Councillor Trapp.
Well, not exactly on the report, Chairman, just that I was going to say that I was very sorry that I couldn't join the assets tour, and I'm hopeful that there'll be another one because I'd very much like to do it. That's all.
I think you'd find a lot of, it'd be very, we're looking, Emma's just said, we're looking to try and do one in the spring. So, yeah. Councillor Trapp.
Yes, I was sorry not to miss that tour, but I was otherwise engaged. May I commend the statement here, and that the fact that you've actually in the appendix, we've now got notes as to on all the items. Have there been works carried out or works to be, and that can I just commend that we have a full update. Thank you very much. Spencer,
thank you, Councillor Trapp. Any other questions? Councillor Whelan, sorry.
Thank you. Thank you. And again, I would have enjoyed coming along on the trip, and the feedback that I actually had from it was that it was very worthwhile. So thank you for that. Just wanted to ask one question, if I may, Chair, and that's one item on here is replacement drainage gullies at Newnham Street. What I noticed the last few times I've been on there is the surface of that car park is becoming very, very poor, very, very potholed. Is there any plans to do something about that surface? I'm assuming it's related to the building work that's going on, because I'm assuming that's the access road that they've been using. Just wondering if there's any plans to deal with that surface there.
That's certainly what is on our plans to deal with it. We have put it back a little bit due to all the works going on there, because we might like resurface it and then cause damage straight away to it. So it's definitely being noted and being monitored, and we will deal with that at the appropriate time. That makes sense.
Councillor Whelan, I've got Councillor Inskip.
Thank you, Chair. It's really a question, I think, to Councillor Hunt, because I'm reading through the role of the asset member champion, and I noticed in particular one of the roles that he's had. It's a role he's had since 2019. So I'm interested, first of all, to understand which meetings external meetings he's attended concerning council assets in the last 4 years, which recommendations he's provided guidance on to officers in terms of recommendations to committee over the last 4 years.
I have developed a very close working relationship with Spencer Clark. We have regular meetings. I would say probably they're not formally and they're not attended by another officer. But the sort of meeting that we do have is the discussion on the maintenance of buildings which we own, like the museum, whether we should do and I think I overheard something about the potholes in Newnham Street. Well, that's exactly what Spencer and I went and did about 2 or 3 days ago and looked at those holes. And then, of course, the discussion went on to, well, while they're still using and building, then it's probably better to do that and repair it when the building work is finished. And that seems sensible to me. So a lot of it is just walking around or driving around, because it's going to all sorts of places where people want to buy, for example, a very small piece of land that is totally unused, and we decide whether that's got a future or not. There's been a lot of meetings going on, and of course, I also have close relationship with Emma, and we discuss things which are, if you discuss them in full, about where exactly you're going to put the toilet in Soham, what exactly is the cost? It's gone up by another £100? Should we pay that? These are the small decisions that are being made, and also the decision to have members' outings onto the sites. How can we do it better? And one of the things that came up was we ought to let members have a choice of where they wanted to go. So the next one will be, these are the places where we suggest you might want to go. Members, please tell us which ones you want to see, and making it a little bit more customer friendly. And certainly the assets is something that most people in this council don't know about. Some people have been members for many years and never been to the depot at Littleport, for example. And I've deliberately tried to, and if elected, I will deliberately try and get more people involved, and so they know and understand the extent of the operations that this council do, and also appreciate the officers and the work they're doing. And I assure you, there is a huge amount of general managerial supervision that goes on. Is that good enough?
Is that? Well, I was I asked actually about the external meetings and recommendations to committee, but I think if I've understood Councillor Hunt correctly, in reality, the role is regular meetings with Spencer and
also other people. For example, we've been in a long-going situation with the Maltings Cottage and whether or not it's got subsidence or not. So yes, there's the occasional meetings with City Council members, and there are not many meetings which are with outside bodies. It's mainly a sort of, what's your opinion about this, and two minds seeing it better than one.
Okay, thank you. So it's that, and I think you said there were some decisions that you think didn't need to come to committee that you were involved in.
Well, if it's a matter of buying a 14-inch mower or a 16-inch mower, I don't think it's the sort of thing that should come to a meeting of the council. I think it's the sort of thing that two people can discuss when they're at the depot looking at the mower.
Through you, Chair, I think just to answer Councillor Roost's question more fully, is that it's very clear that a member champion has no decision-making powers. So what Spencer would do and I would do in consultation, you have a conversation with the asset champion, so we've got this piece of land for sale. So the decisions are more around, can you make sure you get this valuation done before you take it to committee, so members can make an informed decision, or I wouldn't want to support that at committee with you if this valuation isn't there and in place and this process isn't followed, and please make sure you secure legal fees. There's no decisions on budgets from the asset champion. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments on? In which case, if we move to the recommendation on 2.1, and we're being asked to note the update on council owned assets, to note the expenditure tracking sheet at appendix 1 and 3, appoint councillor Hunt as member champion for assets. Can I see those in favour of that recommendation? Those, you got the numbers, Trace? Those against? Those abstaining?
Harry, Chairman.
Okay, thank you, Tracy. Move on to item, we've got two items 16A and 16B, which are the notes of the East Cambs bus cycle walking and working party. We've had we have had a meeting since July. We had one a couple of weeks ago, but obviously it was too recent to get into the agenda paper. They're just for noting. So any comments or questions? No, in which case we move on to item 17, which is the agenda plan. Emma, do you want to make any comments on that?
Oh, no comments, Chairman. I don't think we've had anything this evening that requires a change to the plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, any comments on the agenda, forward agenda plan? No, in which case that ends the public part of the meeting. Or it could do, because I need to go to a vote. Can I have a proposer and seconder that we go into public? I'll propose from the chair that we go into public session, private session.
Seconded.
Seconded. Can I ask for a show of hands, those who are in favour to go into private session? I think that's unanimous. Thank you. In which case that does close the public part of the meeting, and I'd like to thank those members of the press and public watching online. Hope you enjoyed the debates this evening, and enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you. Yeah, we're just going to give it a minute for the stream to go down before we start.